What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of season 2 of the Mecca of Banter. Henry Wind here. We got Winks, Hoove, and Dobes. So we got a 4-person crew tonight. We have a lot to get through at the time of recording. We are one game into the third game of the last round. Is that the best way of saying it? Like Group A has played their third, or are we just done with the second group? What are we doing here?
So I think
Second games?
the third, yeah, we're done with the second games. All of the third round games start tomorrow.
Yeah, so a lot to play for. We'll go through kind of each group and we'll share our thoughts thus far on each thing. But just to start off, what's like the initial impression in the group about the tournament so far?
I think no goals, I think is the
No
best way.
goals, super low scoring.
Unders are banging, bro.
Yeah, I know that we're all betting men, we're all degenerates, and I think that, I think I speak for all of us when I say I hate betting unders, and unfortunately just lost almost every one of those in these first 2 rounds. Super unfortunate.
I think,
Yeah, you want to see goals.
Like 6 or 7 like 0-0 ties going into halftime. I mean, I can't even tell you. Was it? I think I woke up for 3.
That was like 15 or something.
It's something.
So many.
I think I've woken up for like 2 or 3 like 4 a.m. 0-0 ties thus far.
It's just the best way to start a morning, high expectation and low outcome. It's awesome.
There's been some absolutely like cracking games though. Like we have had the occasional just 3-1 to 3-3, like 4-3, like all of these just close games. So we've had the combination of definitely the 0-0s, but we've also gotten the drama in more than a few of these games so far.
Right. Yeah. And we've had our moments too. Like we've had the moments of brilliance, and we'll go through them as we go through each one of the groups. But, the man behind me, Lionel Messi, Argentina shit the bed in the first game, second game, came back with a bang. So we'll get to that. But I say we just dive in. We'll go through group by group, and we'll start there. So Group A. We have Netherlands, Ecuador, Senegal, and Qatar. I don't know about you all. I've loved watching Qatar just get smacked around. I've loved it.
Absolutely
100%.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we've all expressed our thoughts like on, the previous pod about just like the Qatar, hosting the tournament in general, and just to see them kind of like come out and just get rocked. I mean, they've gotten scored on 5 times. They scored a singular goal, but they've just gotten demolished, which has been great. And then I think the other thing that's just been wild and kind of like just one of the points throughout the entire tournament that's been a little bit weird. So many empty seats even at their games. Like, I think it was in like the 55th minute or something like that. There was like a mass exodus of like their own fans just leaving the game.
Half the stadium looks empty.
Yeah, it's so
100%.
wild.
I think recently they've been a little better.
Yeah.
There's definitely been in the games that I've seen the second round or the second matchup, definitely been better.
Yeah.
But at the beginning too, it was like, yo, where is everyone?
Not even saying that like I want to be there because it's in Qatar, but like if I was there, I'd be there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's I was reading something about people that have gone to like 12 games, 13 games just because they're finding tickets that are available for these games.
Oh wow.
And I think all the stadiums are within a couple hours of each other. So it's not like you're traveling this large distance. So people are going over there and end up seeing like, 10, 12 games in the span of a couple weeks, which I mean, yes, it's crazy, but at the same time, it's like unprecedented. When could you ever just like pop over and say, hey, yeah, let me go see Messi play tomorrow? There's some empty seats.
That'd be a dream. But in Group A, I think the top 3 teams are the teams we really need to talk about. So Netherlands and Ecuador are both on top of the table with 4 points and a positive 2 goal differential. And Senegal is right below them with 3 points, and they have a 0 goal differential, which means going into the final day, there's so much to play for. I'll speak on Netherlands real quick. They're my dark horse going into the tournament, and it hasn't really come off that way. I mean, the first game they got to win, second game they got to draw. So first game they kind of like sat back quite a bit. It was kind of like a pretty boring first half, which is the case for a lot of games. But I think the main thing that they're missing is Memphis Depay. He's been coming off the bench both games. He's been carrying a little bit of an injury from the Barcelona season, as well as just not being in top form. And in that first game, you could really see how the offense fully clicked through him. In the second game, he came on late, and it was kind of the same deal. But the real story of the Netherlands team, and probably one of the biggest like shout outs of the tournament so far, is Cody Gakpo. Going into the season, Dobes and I can attest, going into the Prem season this year, there was a lot of talk about him joining United. And back then it was for like 25-30 million. And now he's on the world's biggest stage doing some pretty big things. He scored twice and 2 pretty big goals at that. And his stock has only risen. So I'm pretty impressed with him. But the Netherlands do need to figure it out. They need a win going into their last game. They play Qatar. You would fancy them probably to put in 4, but you never know with these games. But yeah, the Netherlands definitely need a win in this.
I think one, it's like I kind of want to just say hammer the over in that game tomorrow morning, but at the same time, based on the way this
We've
tournament's
made that
going,
many, many times.
All
based
the
on the way
guitar
this,
overs have hit. So
true. I think my surprise out of this group is I think the Netherlands are still finding, kind of like Hen, like you said, I think the Netherlands are still finding their groove. I also just think that like Ecuador is a lot better than I think we're giving credit for. Like watching Enter Valencia, got 3 goals this World Cup. I believe he's tied for the goal, tied for the golden boot currently. Just like watching Ecuador play, I think it's very interesting watching like the countries like that they just whenever it gets to this stage, they just rally around each other. Like the camaraderie, you can see it every single game. Same goes with the African nation. Same goes with Senegal. The fact that Ecuador and Senegal play each other in this final game, I think there might be fireworks tomorrow morning.
Oh
Just
yeah.
those 2 teams going at each other, I think has like it's going to be an absolutely like just barn burner of a match in my opinion.
Yeah.
We definitely didn't give Ecuador enough credit, and someone said this on a broadcast, and it was like, yeah, wait, they get out of their federation is Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Uruguay, like all these kind of high-powered countries, and they toughed it through qualifying. They let in the least amount of goals. They scored when they needed to. They didn't score a ton with their lockdown. I think you're 100% right. That game's gonna crack.
It'll be fun. It'll be super fun. Senegal, I mean, we knew going into it that Sadio Mane wouldn't be part of the team, but they're still finding their form, 3 goals for, 3 goals against. But they look like a tough team. They're battling, which is super fun to watch. But I think, like you said, the game tomorrow is going to be a lot to play for.
What are you guys' thoughts? Just kind of touching on it. I mean, this obviously it's Monday when we're recording this. This will come out tomorrow morning. Who do you guys think? It's obviously the Netherlands is pretty much through.
Yeah.
That Ecuador Senegal game, like who are you guys taking? If Ecuador needs a draw, Senegal needs a win to go through. Like, what are your guys' thoughts?
I don't see a ton of offense on the Senegal side, unfortunately, with Sadio Mane out. I'm sure through playing the other African nations, I think that they relied so heavy on him, and so much of their game plan was funneled through getting the ball to him on the attack that it's going to be up to Koulibaly, Mendy, those guys to really hold it down in the back and hope that they can maybe get some counters or something like that. But I don't see a ton of offensive power in their team without Mane in there. So I think it's going to come down again to how they can defend well as a unit and then counter.
Yeah,
With that,
I could honestly see a tie, and then Ecuador going through on goal differential. But then again, like I would back Valencia to score. Like I mean, we talked about it when we made our predictions of how important the group stage games are to winning that golden boot. And right now, he's scoring against every opponent that they've played. And so even if they don't make a deep run, that he could put in 2 tomorrow and he could win the whole thing. So I think it'll be a tie, and then Ecuador will advance on goal differential.
With that,
I agree.
I'm going like 1-1,
1-1,
2-2.
They locked down. Yeah, they locked down some of the best offensive teams in their continent. Yeah. I don't think they're gonna lose to a weak Senegal team. but I can't guarantee goals in that one.
Yeah.
I can't promise anything.
Sure. Group B. Group B is where we get super biased here with the USA. So as a reminder, right now we have England, Iran, USA, and Wales in that order. Just to call it out, USA has to win. It's win and you're in tomorrow against Iran. We would back ourselves, and I'm curious to hear your all's thoughts. I'll let you all talk on this one.
For me, I think I can confidently say that I think we've been the most consistent team in the group. I think in terms of the first game, we were a Walker Zimmerman, like dumb foul from it being like the perfect start for the United States. Yes, the second half wasn't great. The first half was nearly perfect, in my opinion. But then you go into the England game where at least most Europeans, most people that aren't from the United States didn't give us a single chance. And I think very clearly we were the better team. For not just one half, but for 90 minutes. The only thing we were missing was a goal. So I think we've been the most consistent team in the group. I do think we beat Iran tomorrow. I'm going to go with like a 2-0, 3-1. I do think we score. I don't necessarily know if I trust Greg to play the right lineup, but I do know that he doesn't have a choice this game, but if it's a 0-0, we got to bring on the dogs. Like if he chooses not to play Gio, chooses not to play Aronson from the start, like I'm talking it's 0-0, 50th minute, those guys got to be on the field.
Yeah.
Like he almost doesn't have a choice at this point. In terms of winning the group, I mean, we have a shot. I mean, this is obviously like Wales's World Cup final going against England. So I'm not going to necessarily say that England, England's just going to cruise in that one, but I can't see them losing to Wales. So I think it's going to end up being England's going to win the group, and I think we're going to finish second, is my opinion.
I think we're on the same page with that. Yeah, I think that, surprisingly and not surprisingly, Tyler Adams has just been absolute lockdown in that holding mid position. And, playing box to box, I think that he's just been absolutely unreal. And I think that, in combination with the other two guys we have in the middle, I don't see Iran having much else to do besides get the ball out wide and try and get some crosses in, because I really don't see them going up the middle a whole lot this game. But as far as how the group plays out, Dobes, I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're all on the same page there and agree with you.
I worry more. I worry more about us scoring goals than Iran pulling anything out. So
yes,
yeah,
like I completely agree, Winks. I didn't mean to cut you off at all, but
no, I think that we have to get Gio Reyna in there. We have to get Aronson in there, no matter what. I think if it was up to us, we would have started those two from the beginning. In every game so far, at the very least, brought them on, at half the last two games. And I think we all can agree that we had a really good chance to win the last round against England. And we were all together and we were talking about how those two should have been brought on in the 50th and then the 60th. And then, even after that, they finally brought him on and we had some fresh legs in there.
And I think that's maybe even more too. Like why we're seeing so evidently that these guys are just beat into the ground after playing all year and then coming here and continuing to play 90 minutes. Like what's the problem? Like there wasn't anything happening against England in the second half that wouldn't have gone better with an earlier sub. And not even, it could have been different, any personnel at some point. Like we were all sitting there yelling at the TV, like, I don't even care who it is. Like,
anyone,
somebody.
Jordan Morris, bring him on.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
I think the thing for me was it was so frustrating is going into England, we knew regardless of the outcome, we had to beat Iran. So like, why not go for it to where like we can set ourselves up to potentially just have to tie Iran? It's like, that's what's more frustrating to me is like, we knew our fate before that game even started. And we had them on the ropes for a while. What would have killed them is fresh legs. Like Southgate brings in Jordan Henderson. Like
in like the 70th minute, they were conceding immediately. Like right then, look at it. Look at the game. Look at the way it's playing out. Look at the result that could happen. Put it on their necks. Like
they were going for the tie.
Yeah, 100%. And like I'll touch real quick. I think we're all correct and like we have to win, and therefore like what I would like to see is I would like to see Weah play through the middle. play the number 9. And then out on the right, I actually don't care if it's Gio or Brendan. I really don't. I think they both provide something different, but we do need to score goals. And I think both of those guys can get it done. I don't know. I think in this, I would trust Brendan a little bit more just to put on the high pressure and to make them concede. I think when I watched Iran against England, the first game, that was a thing that their defense didn't like to play out too much. And if we can apply a high press, I think that that'll be really good. But just to touch on England for a second, I know so much of us watch the Prem, and we all kind of have players from our own teams in that squad. Southgate's doing some funky things too. It's hard to criticize a team that wins 6-2 in the first game. Truthfully, they didn't put a foot wrong really throughout the entire game. And when we watched them against the US, I was stoked that they brought in Henderson, when they did, because I was like, that's great. But to not play Phil Foden, what are you doing? I think that you have one of the most generational talents that we've seen in England in a long time, riding the bench and not even seeing the field. It's bonkers to me. And, I love Jude Bellingham. I thought that he was going to be the young player of the tournament. He didn't have a great game against the US. And I think they could have used a guy like Phil to come on and really dominate that 10 position, to really just make life hard for the center backs. And they just didn't do it. So I think England, will advance, obviously, but I do question their depth in a deep run just because I don't know what Southgate is really thinking. I said it before the tournament in the Mecca group that Southgate and Greg Berhalter are the same person. They make the same kind of decisions.
Both clueless.
Two
So
biggest threats to
bonkers.
world peace.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. And of course, during press conferences, they're going to sing each other's praises because they're the same person. But yeah, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense watching. But yeah, it's Group B. Group C. You want to go through it?
Let's
All right.
do it.
So Group C, in this order, we have Poland, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico. This is a big final day.
I'm excited for this final day.
Same.
Yeah.
As a Messi fan, not where you want to see the final day. I mean, on paper, Argentina has the hardest game of that, going up against Poland. One big shout out that I'll give, he's actually my honorable mention for surprise of the tournament so far. Chesney in goal has been a monster.
He was a baller that last game.
2 straight shutouts, and he's been immaculate. Again, not who you want to go up against if you're Mr. Lionel Messi, but you back him in it. So yeah, what are your all's thoughts?
I think we talked about this before, after the Saudi upset Argentina, but I think that Argentina was on such a long unbeaten streak that losing to Saudis could end up being a very good thing in the way that it humbles them, it humbles their team. Yes, they were one of the favorites going into it, but I think that, this applies to any sport at any level. But, as soon as a team loses, such a long unbeaten streak, it sort of refocuses the squad and allows them to kind of go back to their roots and go back to what they were doing that made them successful. I think it was a good wake up call for the team. So yes, I agree that Chesney's been playing incredible, but I think that they were a different team the last game they played from what we saw. I think that we've talked about it before. Saudi just defended Argentina so well. Kudos to their coach. We talked about that, but I think that Argentina is just too good, and I think they're going to find a way to dig out a win tomorrow. I know we're all hoping for it as well, but I think in addition to that, we're all super happy to see Mexico at the bottom of the table in that group right now as well. Knock on wood, it stays that way.
Of course.
Yeah, I think too, Poland didn't exactly beat Saudi Arabia in convincing fashion. They had one goal, good goal. Saudi Arabia missed a penalty, and then Lewa got a cheap one at the very end. So I think that game is huge on a lot of levels, but also because Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia, they looked bad, et cetera, et cetera. Poland doesn't look great. I think they're all kind of playing in the same level of form. That could for sure be a dogfight.
Yeah.
Poland, they don't ever make it out of anything, bro. Like
Yeah.
they
What's
got
what's
to.
even what's even crazier about this group too, looking at it again, if Saudi pulls out a win against Mexico and Argentina wins, Argentina and Saudi Arabia move on. So
Yeah.
Saudi would make it out of their group, which would just be
Bonkers.
unreal
Well,
in
that's a
itself.
that's
I
a big
think-
deal too. And like if Poland beats Argentina and Mexico beats Saudi Arabia, they get through. They've got a point. Like there's so
Yeah.
many scenarios here that are ridiculous.
What's exciting is that all the teams need goals. Obviously, you
Yeah.
want to win every game that you're part of, but they need goals. There's like a
Mhm.
huge goal differential. Like everything is +2 or -2, and it's in that little like spectrum. And so I could see the floodgates being opened. I'll touch on it for a second. Just Lissandro Martinez came in to Argentina's back line and truthfully like locked down. Christian Romero came out of the starting lineup and he had, one or two mistakes in that first game. And unfortunately, those one or two mistakes were in the same 5-minute period where they scored twice, the Saudi Arabians did. And so I do trust Argentina's back line to get it done. I think their wing backs have been flying, but their center backs have been pretty solid in that second game. So I'm hopeful that we can hold like Poland to a shutout and hopefully put it in a goal or two. So
I'm with that. I think this group's been super interesting to watch because like much like you're saying, like Poland beat Saudi Arabia, but that wasn't a 2-0 game. Like that wasn't a 2-0 game. That was a
No.
one mistake. Saudi Arabia had
Could've been.
chances.
Yeah,
Like,
1-1 could have been. Yeah,
Like, and then watching Argentina, Mexico, what I think so interesting is speaking about Messi a little bit is for so much of that game you watched in Mexico had 2 or 3 players around Messi to where
yes,
you sort to think like the teams have Messi figured out. And then later on in the game, I wasn't sure if it was Argentina's coach or what it was, but you see the Argentina players almost play the extra pass 5 or 10 yards away from each other to draw people in. You saw it on the goal. They passed the ball back and forth like 6 or 7 times right around each other. And it drew people out to where Messi, for the first time in the game, had 6 yards of space. And you saw what happened.
Yeah.
So I think the key is if Argentina can find Messi again in those dangerous areas around the box, around the goal, he'll create. But I think so many of these teams in Saudi Arabia did such a good job of it. Is the moment he has the ball, there's 3 guys.
Yeah.
Like the moment he has the ball, there's 3 guys around him. And truthfully, Poland's leading this group right now, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Argentina didn't win 2-3-0. Like Poland's winning a draw, but at the same time, I don't think Saudi Arabia or Mexico are of the level of Argentina. And much like Wink said, I think the Saudi Arabia game just woke Argentina up, them having to play with their backs against the wall for the next 2 games. I think that's where Messi, as well as all the 10 other guys on that field, they're just going to give everything they have for him. So I
And
think
you
there's
saw,
no
you saw
room
that
for it.
you saw that in the passion, of the team and the stadium when he scored last game too. It's just
Yeah.
like it's different on that Argentinian side.
I'm going to, if I was picking who's going to come out of this group, I'm going to take Argentina's going to beat Poland. And I think the Saudis get a point out of.
yeah. Mexico's been tough.
It all just depends on, I guess, the goal differential in that
Goal
Argentina-Poland game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be wild. I mean, I guess I think I'll take Argentina to win the group, Poland to finish second. But it'd be pretty awesome just to see the Saudis get out of that group. And what's crazy is it would definitely be deserved, like 100% deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that I don't agree with really anything that he does, but Greg Berhalter before the tournament said like we don't have to be the best team at the World Cup to win the World Cup. We just have to be better than our opponents. Saudi Arabia is proving that they're not the best team, like in any regard. But that first game, they couldn't have had a better game plan against Argentina, and we'll see what they do on Tuesday. But pretty exciting stuff here. And I think I can speak for us all. Tears, bro. Whenever Messi scored that goal, holy
It was wild.
Lord,
Yeah,
tears,
that was wild.
nuts.
Yeah, the picture of when Messi went to the corner and celebrated, it's like half Argentina fans and half Mexico fans, and all the Mexico fans have their phones out taking
Yeah.
pictures. That's when you know.
Yeah, there's levels, bro. Group D is probably the easiest group to talk about. France is so clear of Group D. In order, we have France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia. France has 6 points, Australia has 3 points, and Denmark and Tunisia both have 1. There's not a world that France doesn't see it out. And they've been lights out. of the whole tournament. They've been so good.
One of
Yeah.
3 teams with 2 wins
Yeah.
in the first 2 games.
I think in that doing it after just losing Benzema and then Giroud. I mean, I know we may talk about him in a little bit later, but and Giroud just sliding into that spot, and then I mean, obviously, you just have to talk about Mbappe, who's just been out of this world. You
Yeah.
know, like that their roster and their subs, and even the guys that didn't get called up, it's so
And
deep. Their
yeah,
pool is
everyone
so
hurt.
deep.
Ridiculous.
It's nuts. Something to be said is just to keep it a buck, like over the last 6 months, there's been a lot of talk about Mbappe in the Mecca of Banter group chat. Just, with everything now being like the sporting director of PSG and the biggest contract in the history of ever, whatever you want to call it, there's just been a lot of talk. And quite honestly, like I've been pretty like annoyed with Mbappe as a character over the last 6 months, and just to watch him consistently do it for France is nuts at his age. He's like what, 22 years old. And what's interesting is like watching him with France. He's a different player than at PSG. He still is explosive. He's still, all of that stuff, but he's playing on the left. Truly, rarely ever is he drifting inside as like a 9. And he's also putting in the work. I think sometimes when we watch PSG, we're so critical of the front 3, not tracking back, not applying pressure on the defensive side. He's doing all of that stuff, and it's really fascinating watching him do that. But we do have to get him props. We have to give him praise for doing that. And I think when you look at the front 3, Giroud, we'll definitely talk about him, but you have, Dembele on the right wing. What was an outcast for France a couple of years ago now is just applying so much pressure on that right hand side. Sometimes when you want to lock down one side, you think it's better to go up to the other side, and you just so happen to have one of the top 3 players in the world on that left hand side. So they're a problem. They are tough, and we'll see how deep they go. But the rest of the group, I don't know how much we really want to go into it. I think Denmark, gets a win against Australia and they get through, but I think they lose in the next round. But France is, the clear, workhorse in that
Yeah,
group.
I think Denmark's national media is probably saying the same thing that we are right now. Like if
Yeah.
you would have said that all you had to do is beat Australia and you make it to the next round, they're taking it. Like they weren't going to beat France. They knew they weren't going to beat France. Tough result against Tunisia. But like they're all in. Like they're like, yes, we can beat Australia. That's been the game plan this whole time. So I think you're right on that. I think they take it. They're my dark horse. They've been super disappointing, frankly. So would enjoy getting them out of the group. But I think it's hilarious watching Australians celebrate anything.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm partial. I would love to see them get through, but I think they've got a tough one with Denmark.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty easy, like cut and dry group. Like it's probably the easiest one of this whole thing.
My thing about Mbappe that you commented on, it had me think a little bit. Like you're right, he's just so much more into the French national team. And he's like, obviously you play for your country, everything's different. But I do think too that there's those characters that aren't. He's like the senior at PSG. He's been there long enough now that he's like tenured, and he's this guy that has opinions that can talk to the team. I think there's still guys like Giroud and some of those old heads and like Pavard and whoever have been playing there for forever, and he doesn't have that authority anymore. Like Didier Deschamps has won World Cups. Like you kind of just can't talk to those guys like that.
It's that
So
like leave your ego at the door. Like the moment you show up, it's like, I mean, they've done it before. So it's like I think he kind of knows that there's being the man without being the man and causing off the field issues and off the field drama. And he also just doesn't have a say in who gets called into the French squad like he does on who PSG's on.
Yeah, he's not the sporting director.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I think as a fan of footy, like it's hard to watch him play like this for France and just wish that he could do that like year round and play with that enthusiasm and play with that like selflessness. But, we're not him, and it just is really fucking annoying to watch for PSG, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's brutal. Group E is juicy. We have Spain, Japan, Costa Rica, and Germany. Germany with 1 point, Spain at 4 points, and then both Japan and Costa Rica at 3 points. A lot to play for here. Spain and Japan face off, and then Costa Rica and Germany face off. Germany is out with anything other than a win. They're out, and Butch's prediction of underperformance looks really good. I don't know about you all, but I've been so underwhelmed with Germany. They've looked like ass. Literally, they've been so bad. Spain has looked good. I wish Butch were here. I tell him that they shit the bed hard last game against Germany. But that first game was unbelievable. 7 goals in an opening game. I don't think it's ever been done. It was pretty unreal.
I'm so with you. Germany's been so underwhelming. I think the lack of a 9 or the lack of a true 9 up top is, I think, hurts them so much. Because if you look at just the rosters, I mean, it's superstars from the play. I mean, a lot of them in the German league, but they play everywhere, top leagues, top teams. So this team should be better than it is. And I think playing Kai in that first game, and you saw kind of what Japan did, like it definitely hurt them. Like they missed like a Timo Werner or somebody that can get in behind, because I think we all know Kai is not a true 9.
Mm-hmm.
He's being wasted. And I don't know necessarily if that's his fault or if it's just people think he can play as a false 9. But I think we've seen for Chelsea, he's, aside from 1 goal to win the Champions League, I don't rate him that much. I think he's that Champions League hangover has very much apparent with him. At the same time, I've also been extremely impressed with Japan. Like I thought that first game when they beat Germany, like that was deserved. Like they battled the entire game. Like they took it to the Germans at some points, and I think they're very well deserved to be in second place. And I can see them getting out of the group. I mean, they need, who do they play? They play Spain going to the next one.
Yeah. They gotta have a performance.
They get a point though, like a point. They're probably through. I don't know.
Yeah, unless Germany just hangs 10 on Costa Rica.
I'm just not confident in the Germans right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to say that the group may finish exactly what it is right now, Spain, Japan, but at the same time, Spain's going to want to beat Japan just to finish and ensure first in the group. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at Spain, and I want to just I'll throw out maybe like not a factor cap, but maybe a hot statement, if you will. I think Spain's overrated. I know that Butch called them his dark horse, and that's fine. And then when you go out and score 7 goals, it's pretty immaculate. But watching them against Germany, bro, like they should have iced the game and they just didn't.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like Luis Enrique, which is Spain's coach, like prides his teams on playing out of the back and building up and doing all of that. But interestingly enough, when Germany at halftime kind of switched their approach, that's what shot them in the foot. Their keeper made a couple of mistakes playing out of the back, and it sucked in a lot of pressure. I don't know. Like, I think Spain is a solid team. They have a lot of guys that I love watching on that team, but I don't know. I don't think that they're as high as maybe what they looked in that first game. And even, if and when they make it through this group stage, I don't know how far they're going in the tournament. I'm not super high on them.
I think we need to see them play one of the better teams in the tournament to really know who they are. And I think we expected Germany to be that, but I don't think that, as we saw from Germany, Japan, I don't think that the Germans are that team this year. Like, I don't know who they could potentially play, but I think when Spain plays a France, a Brazil, one of these top teams, even in Argentina and England, like then we'll kind of see teams that can also possess the ball, teams that can also keep the ball, that have the quality to keep the ball away from them, how they have to get broken down defensively. Like, I think it'll be interesting because I think you're right. Like the first performance was very impressive. The second game was very underwhelming. So we'll see. I mean, I'm high on Spain just for Butchie's sake, but at the same time, I don't think I see him winning the whole thing.
Yeah, no shot.
I mean, I think what's something interesting too about Spain is like they've got a lot of guys that can score goals, but their designated goal scorers are Alvaro Morata and whoever else.
Ferran Torres, who's a cat.
Ferran Torres. I think he reminds me of a Muppet in some way, some weird way. But yeah, like like you said, like they should have iced it against Germany. They scored 6 on Costa Rica. And I don't think Costa Rica just showed up that day because we couldn't score 6 on Costa Rica in our life.
Yeah.
So like, they're not a pushover team. I think that's really, really interesting because I think they struggle against Japan to create, golden opportunities, but I also don't see them totally, getting blown out at the back to Japan. So, I think Germany goes through strictly because Spain will beat Japan, and I have a hard time seeing Costa Rica getting a result against Germany. But like you're right, both of those teams are gonna find out real quick, like what's reality.
Yeah, that's real. Winks, any thoughts on that group?
I think you guys covered most of it, but yes, Germany's been underwhelming so far, but I don't think we should ever count out a powerhouse like those guys. I think that, they could very easily stomp, Costa Rica next game and convincingly win and make their goal differential so much so that they make it through. And again, it could be another one of those things like they've been a powerhouse for so long that this could also be a wake up call for this side. I think my young player prediction was Jamal Musiala, and he was underwhelming in their first game, but had an assist against Spain. And I think that
He looked good
you
in
guys
Spain.
talked about, you know, seeing them playing bigger teams and seeing how that goes. And yes, they lost, their first game, but then they played a bigger club in Spain and obviously weren't the better team in that game. But I think they looked a lot better than they did in the first one all around. So I think that my biggest takeaway from this group, I think Spain takes it for sure, but I don't want to count out a country that big.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Group F.
Group F.
We have 3 more groups here. Group F: Croatia, Morocco, Belgium, and Canada. Croatia and Morocco are both on top with 4 points, and Croatia is only ahead on goal differential. 2 big bummers here. One, Belgium just imploding. Dobes, I think it was you that called out that they were going to be the biggest disappointment of the tournament. But the other big bummer is Canada. Canada is the second team that's out of this tournament other than Qatar, and I don't think they deserve that. They were electric to watch in both the first 2 games. They were like a foot here and a foot there away from winning both of those games, and it's sad to watch them bow out of the tournament early, but they were a fun side to watch.
Yeah, it was a huge bummer that they gave up that one to Belgium. Like if they keep that one draw, they go into Morocco like for sure. This is like Morocco's definitely been a surprise of the tournament, I think, to a lot of people, but Canada takes themselves against anybody any day. And like maybe the coach doesn't say that they're gonna, fuck up Croatia. Or to the media at least. I'm sure you can say that whenever you want, but they got exposed at the end of that. Depth reasons, you can say whatever you want. They've got a 39-year-old captain in the midfield. Like, there's things that you can't control on some of that, but it's like you go into the World Cup, you have to keep plan, and their plan busted when Belgium, scored that 70th minute goal from, a ridiculous ball from Vertonghen or Toby. But, they've been a bummer. I agree completely. We were all pretty high on them before they got in. And I think, we may have talked about them leaving this group, but they've been disappointing. They've gotten disappointing results, I should say.
Is it safe to say, based on if I remember correctly, all of our predictions, this group is flip-flopped from what we projected in terms of Belgium and Canada making it through and Croatia and Morocco not?
Pretty much.
Mine is, yeah.
I think mine was too. I think that's crazy. I think that, not to make this about another sport, but in March Madness we pick a ton of upsets because we're used to it. And then when you get to the World Cup, because it happens once every 4 years, most of my brackets, I don't have a ton of upsets built in there just because there's not as many teams, not as many games. And, this just goes to show that upsets come in this tournament too.
Yeah, it's very true.
I think this, like, I didn't have Belgium going through. I had them as my flop, kind of like Hen said.
Okay.
But just talking about Canada for a second, like I think It's so interesting because Davies has been class, Buchanan's been class, and I think almost what hurts them a little bit is that Davies tries to do too much. To where
Yeah.
like there's times where you see him out wide, and don't get me wrong, absolutely class as a winger as he is as a left back. But there's times where you see him on the opposite wing. There's times where you see him playing as a center midfielder. There's times where you see him playing as a 9. And at times I think he just tries to do too much to where it almost hurts his team defensively. But I'm definitely with you guys that they deserve more. I think the biggest surprise out of this group for me is Morocco. Like, and watching Ziyech, it's so funny that all of the Chelsea guys that haven't been playing at Chelsea are just absolutely balling at this World Cup. And Ziyech from Morocco has been just incredible. I do think that just moving to Croatia a little bit, like the experience is definitely just coming over, having made the final, having been here and done this before with Luka to kind of keep them level headed. Perisic, who's been there, done that before. Like Croatia, I think, still ends up winning this group. But at the same time, like they played Belgium. And I know Belgium has their issues, like De Bruyne before their second game came out and even said, like, to the public, we're too old and too slow.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely outrageous to happen.
Yeah. Not a great thing to say.
Yeah.
Not a great thing to say, but I think if we saw Belgium beat Croatia, like, would any of us really be surprised?
Yeah.
You know,
Supposedly
like
the number 3 team in the world.
yeah, wherever those rankings come from is beyond me. But I think
It's unbelievable.
yeah, I think Croatia gets through. And I honestly think that so does Morocco, but I think that means they could still lose to, like, still potentially lose to Canada. Like I think I see Croatia beating Belgium, and I could see that being like Canada winning and Morocco just getting through because they're already on 4 points.
Yeah, I think this group's up for grabs completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't have said anything about Monaco either, or Morocco, geez. But the United States men's team stomped them out 3-0 building up to this tournament. And they still had some of their dogs. Like they definitely weren't a full team. But and then we played Japan, and then we played Saudi Arabia, and we see what they turn around and do, and on the World Cup. And like I wouldn't have said anything about Morocco. I would have had no idea. I wouldn't have said a word. I know 4 or 5 players probably off the top of my head, and like, good for them.
I think Nicky, quick shout out to Nicky. I think he had them as like his dark horse. I'm pretty sure.
I think he did too. Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said that they'll definitely like advance out of the group. They may not make a deep run, but definitely surprise some people. And I think that's true. What the fuck is happening with Belgium though? I mean, for real, like I know that you just mentioned like De Bruyne came out and said, they're too old and stuff like that. But I mean, there's reports today that like there had to be a fight broken up between Hazard and Vertonghen. Yeah,
big Rom breaking the fight up.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought? But it just, I mean, it literally feels like we're watching a team like implode, and it's the weirdest thing. But I think De Bruyne is spot on that like they are too old everywhere in that position. I think like the only young guy on there is like Onana, who plays for Everton, who's like been playing in the center midfield. He hasn't been playing great. So yeah, I mean, it's weird to watch. I think they've been overrated for a long time. Number 3 in the world is bonkers. Before that, they were like number 1 in the world, which is bonkers too.
Yeah.
Just weird. I think the one call out on Belgium is De Bruyne plays in a completely different position for Belgium than he does for Man City. Like we're used to seeing him like bomb down the right center of the field and whip in crosses. He is anywhere but there when he plays for Belgium, which is not a good look. So
it's kind of a reality check for him not playing next to world-class players.
Yeah.
I think it's just not necessarily that he's trying to do too much, but like life's a little tough and you just can't float the ball up in the box, and Erling Haaland will just fly out anywhere and touch it in for him,
Yeah.
So not to say that he's, I think it's just so much, like kind of like you said, he has to play so much differently for Belgium, and I don't think it suits the way that gets the best out of him.
No, especially when you have Batshuayi up top right now. Gee whiz. It's nuts. Group G. It's a little bit surprising for me. Brazil is clear on 6 points. Regardless of what they do against Cameroon, they're through. Then you have Switzerland, Cameroon, and Serbia with 3 points, 1 point, and 1 point respectively. Serbia is a big surprise to me here. They're on the bottom of the table with 1 point, which they got a draw. Earlier, I think it was against Cameroon, but
in a wild game.
Yeah,
wild.
3-3.
A very winnable game. They scored what was it, 2 goals in extra time in the first half, and then one in like the 54th, 53rd minute of the second half, like ending the first half great, starting the second half incredible, and then somehow letting up to, going into the 60th, 70th minute. Like, you just can't do that. I don't really know how else to put it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you just can't, man. And I had them as my dark horse for this tournament, and you know, I think losing 2-0 to Brazil in the first game, a lot of us probably could have seen that, knowing how deep Brazil is and how talented their whole team is. But the Cameroon game was very, very winnable, and it was something that they needed to do. I don't know, man. That just kind of that made me see the team in a little bit of a different light than what I had seen them, playing in the qualifying matches leading up to the World Cup. I think that the best teams get leads and hold it. I think they got way too relaxed as soon as they went up 3-1. And yeah, super unfortunate to see.
Yeah.
They have to beat Switzerland now, which I think is still probably doable for them. And the only thing I think that would throw that off is if Cameroon beats Brazil, which I would only see if, the not dogs are playing, because they're
Yeah, I
wrestling,
can
but
see
it's
them playing their
Brazil.
entire B team. Brazil.
Yeah, which is still
Then
an
again, their B
unbelievable team.
Their B team's
Yeah,
solid.
yeah.
an A
So,
team in almost every other country.
Yeah.
dude, 100%. I was with you 100% on Serbia, and I thought they were going to be way better. And I think it's, like you said, it's tough to pull opinions 100% off of 2 games. But, their thought process was, we got to beat Cameroon, and then last day, we'll square up with Switzerland no matter what whatever point values they have. So you're right. They executed their game plan to perfection and then let it go away starting in the 70th and, completely choked. So I'm with you. They've been disappointing, but I think there's some credit there to Cameroon too, because they just never gave up. Like,
Yep.
you
100%.
pull 2 goals, 3 goals back if you need, like, but they're not going to beat Brazil. See you, buddy.
So yeah. I know that we mentioned it in the lead up and we're mentioning it now, but man, Brazil is deep. I think you lose your superstar Neymar, game 1 to an injury, and looks like he's going to be back for the round of 16. But you just have a couple other world class players just coming off the bench, which is pretty solid. They played a totally different middle of the park today than they did in game 1, and it looked great. Vinicius is fun to watch, man. He is so fun. He's electric on that left side. But shout out to Casemiro. He scored a banger of a goal today, and then he also assisted that ruled off goal with the offsides, and he's just getting into some advanced positions when he needs to, and it's kind of like a little bit of that like quality that you'd expect from an older player. He's really showing it on the world's biggest stage, which is fun to watch. And Dobes, you mentioned it earlier. Like, we just so badly want to watch Anthony spin on the ball and watch the internet lose their mind again.
I want it so bad. I want to
Dude.
put it in just to watch
Give
the
it.
internet. Just to watch the internet melt down at a player
Yeah.
showing flair.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. But Brazil's pretty clear through, and it brings us to Group H, which is Portugal on top with 6 points. We have Ghana, South Korea, and Uruguay. Ghana with 3, and then South Korea with 1, Uruguay with 1. Pretty odd group. I hate Cristiano Ronaldo. I can't stand the guy. But I'll let you all go off on the group for a sec.
What, Dubs? We had Portugal as both of our disappointments, and they're one of the
Yeah,
top
me
3 teams
too.
to go through first.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that sucks.
Figures.
Same.
We gave them. I don't know. We didn't give them enough credit. They're the same guys. Like, Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't need a team right now to at least contribute a little bit more to this Portugal team. But yeah, it's a sour taste in your mouth watching him do it a little bit. Like, it's cool. He's legendary. Like, we're sitting here talking about sitting in tears as some St. Louis, Missouri white boys watching Messi score a goal in Qatar, but then we're like spitting at the shoes of Ronaldo. I think a little bit of a double standard, but one of those guys didn't have the controversy. So South Korea's been a bummer. Sonny's not played well. Sonny's looked really bad. He did have his face broken
Yeah.
15 days before the tournament started. So I'm not going to cut him too much,
I
get
will say
dog on him.
he looked badass in that mask though.
He did.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you could have bagged one at least for something. He hasn't had a great year at Spurs either.
There's still time.
There's
Yeah.
still time. But when you're the focal point, like a Sadio Mane on Senegal, and then for South Korea, for everybody else to show up, and
Yeah.
Yep.
they've got, I couldn't even tell you the guy's name, but the leading K League striker that has 2 goals now is like, he's kind of a dog.
Yeah.
Like it's
good to see.
cool watching them play well while he's not, but for them to do anything, it hinges on him. And I could see Portugal as one of the teams that does actually rest their starters going into this last game. I don't think they don't need Cristiano Ronaldo to go out there. He will play because that's who he is, but
He wants the records.
the team will see the bigger picture, I think. And I think South Korea could win that. I think Ghana could beat Uruguay. Uruguay's been disappointing. Someone had them as the dark horse.
Through 2 games.
Yeah,
Suarez didn't
that
start this
sucks.
game.
That sucks.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dobes, you had Uruguay going as like
I was
the dark
getting
horse.
ready to
What's
say,
going on?
I think what's been so uncomfortable to watch about Uruguay going forward is they keep rotating their front 2 strikers and they have no fluidity. Like today, they went with Cavani and Nunes, who are 2 guys who, I mean, obviously Cavani's a little bit past his prime, but they're 2 very similar players to where they were trying, oftentimes they're making the same runs or just trying to look for a counterattack in the midfield of, Bentancur and what's the guy's name from Madrid? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Valverde.
Yeah, Valverde.
Who both been playing really well.
Who both just balled today, but going forward, aside from like maybe trying like to whip the ball wide and get a cross in, they've had absolutely zero going forward. Like Bentancur's chance today was beating 3 guys in the midfield, and like that was their best chance
Beautiful.
of the game today. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, at least I had Portugal as my team that was going to go out here pretty early, but at the same time, like, I mean, I have to. He's my background right now. I have to give my man Bruno some credit. I mean,
Bravo to him, yeah.
He's been absolutely just class over the first 2 games. 2 goals, 2 assists in 2 games. Been outrageous. And I think what's interesting is like Ronaldo got his goal in the first game, but I do think that when he comes out, they look a little better. And I don't know if that's necessarily because very much like United, they just force him the ball, force him crosses, force him everything. But I do think they have a little bit more fluidity in terms of when they switch things up or just play Jow through the middle. But at the same time, like they're going to get out of this group. But I don't necessarily know how when Ronaldo's going against 2 top center backs, like they may have to pull him in the 60th minute if it's 0-0 if they're not losing. Like,
that's true.
You have a Pepe who's 39 years old as a center back. Like they'll get out of this group, and the first 2 games have definitely been, I guess, impressive is the way to, I don't necessarily know if I'd clarify it as that, but I think getting out of this and their next game will be the real test. Like I definitely see them probably getting 3 points. Who they play next? South Korea, I'm assuming. Playing South Korea. I see them getting 3 points. And the only reason I think they may not rest a lot of their guys is because if Ghana beats Uruguay, like based on that score line, like Ghana could top the group still.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why I think that they may still play. I mean, Ronaldo's going to force himself to play just because that's who he is. But
this is when he finds out. This is the year he finds out that he is a negative player. And it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck for him. It's gonna suck for everybody. But at this time being, and even with United, like he's just a negative player, bro. He'll bag that PK if you draw it. But God,
tried to take that goal today.
Yeah,
ran to the corner, had us all celebrating a Ronaldo goal and a Bruno assist.
And if it wouldn't have smacked my parlay, I wouldn't have cared as much. But
we were financially dependent on that.
Damn, bro, that was tough.
Yeah, it was nuts. So those are the groups. Obviously a lot of stuff covered in that, and I think kind of going into the last section here, like I think each one of us, what do we have? Like the biggest surprise of the tournament, biggest tournament so far. Any other like categories we want to throw out, or we just want to stick with that?
I think we do that. Then we
Yeah, that's good with me.
hit it with Butchie's factor cap. I know he's not here, but he gave us one to share with you all, so we can go for that afterwards.
Word. Well, who wants to start us off? Who's having the biggest tournament so far?
Are we going teams, players, both?
Players.
Just players.
Players, yeah.
Players.
I mean, for me, I mean, you guys know who I'm going to take. I'm taking Bruno. I mean, I just am, and I think it's warranted. I mean, he takes a lot of hate for the Prem, but
Yeah.
I also think the Portugal aren't on 6 points right now if it's not for him. So I'm taking Bruno. Just 2 assists in the first game, 2 goals today. Literally could have had 4 today.
One and a half goals today.
Rang, yeah. Did you see Piers Morgan? He was like, "Yeah, if Ronaldo had more hairspray, and they would have counted it."
I saw a meme that showed the screen of it being Bruno's goal, and then a kid with a backpack running away, and it's saying Ronaldo running to Piers to tell him about it.
That's so nuts.
What's so funny
Yeah,
is
Bruno-
Pierre's like tweeted right afterwards. He was like, "Of course he did it," or something with a picture of Ronaldo celebrating, and then like 5 minutes later had the tweet again, being like, "Oh yeah, but if Ronaldo had the hairspray, and they would have given it to him."
Yeah.
No,
unreal though.
I'm going Bruno thus far as my standout player. I'm not necessarily that it's a surprise, but I didn't necessarily know that he would do this
I'm surprised.
We see him do it for Man United occasionally right now. So he hasn't been as consistent, which is why I think it's definitely a surprise to me that he's been good as he has.
Right.
I think the guys on our short list aren't any of them going to be all that surprising.
Yeah.
Like they're guys that maybe should be doing the things that they're doing, but it just so happens to be that it's a way bigger deal now. And you look for those types of things. What else are we doing? Do you have more on those?
No, let's go player of the tournament so far.
Let's go play
Spin it. Player of the tournament. Wait.
Your most surprising player, one who's doing a lot better than you expected.
Okay. Better than I expected. I am gonna go with Richarlison just because of I think he shut a lot of people down. And I think the conversation, I almost wanted to bring this up with Brazil, but I think the conversation between Gabriel Jesus and Richarlison, you're comparing almost sort of apples and oranges. But I think as a Spurs fan, Gabriel Jesus is a really good striker and should 100% be competing with him for that position. But I think, you saw it very evidently in the first game that they're 2 completely different players. Like Gabby's going to, dude, Gabby's going to get in behind spaces. He's a tight dribbler. He'll find passes. And I think that plays to the wing strength a lot. And I think you saw that when he came in for Richarlison both games. But Richie's a 9. Richie wants the ball in the box. He's going to turn and shoot. He's not looking to lay it off to you. And, I think in a tournament style like this, that plays to his favor for sure. Right. You've got less time to build up with teammates. You've got less time to build, chemistry. And these guys are as tight as it gets. So I think he's been impressive and he didn't even really have a great game the second game. I don't want to call him a ghost because he still had an opportunity or two, but I think he's going to provide those types of moments while also minorly disappearing from games and then, show up with a scissor kick twist. Like
the Brazilian,
just a worldy. And I follow a lot of the media that follows him too. He practices that in training. Like he posted videos of him just taking scissor kick after scissor kick from corners, and like the guy bags him. So he didn't doubt himself for a second in that moment. So it's cool to see him wear that, and kind of be able to shut some people down. But it's exciting. And I don't think there's any there's no negative comment from me about Gabriel Jesus. If he started, I wouldn't have batted an eye. I wouldn't have said a word. If you go to Twitter, it's a whole different conversation. But from a footy fans aspect, who's maybe a little more neutral, that it's good competition. And I think Gabby scores one, and I think that he does well at some point in some game in the tournament. So
I think I was gonna say I think Gabby will be needed, but I think the point that you texted today, who was that, like for Tottenham, you have Harry Kane.
Yep.
So Richarlison's best position, as we're kind of seeing, is as a 9. And I think as a 9, you're seeing just how much he can thrive, especially with the players he has around him.
United needs 100%. A 9.
I think it'd be interesting. I saw this on Twitter. It's like, why wouldn't Spurs just drop Harry a little bit? You play with the
Go to a
same
10.
wingers.
Yeah.
You drop
Him as a
Harry
10?
to the 10. He's very much so made himself in the conversation as one of the best passers of the ball in the world, at least not the best striker who
Mm.
can pass the ball.
The
So
most all around striker in the world. in
the
my opinion.
guy
Yeah.
can ping, and he's not fast. He doesn't need to be fast in that role. He finds spaces. This isn't about Spurs, but
You can see
I'm
it.
with I'm with it.
Winks, what about you, brother?
Yeah, I think my background alluded to it a little bit, but I think that Olivier Giroud's been my most surprising player of the tournament. Not in any way, I think, similar to Richie and Bruno discrediting that we didn't think that they were gonna, do much in the World Cup. But I think that with Benzema's unfortunate exit, I thought we were gonna see a lot more of Mbappe and Dembele and some other guys on the team, scoring the goals and things like that. But he was incredible, especially the first game. But he's been incredible all the way around so far, filling in that role of what Benzema was previously holding, and tying Thierry Henry's France goals record is just crazy in and of itself. But he showed everybody that he is still an elite striker. Just been a really fun guy to watch.
you're gonna love this
these
comment,
games.
and I'm comfortable with saying it. But I'm cool with Giroud being one of the most underrated players of all time.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
comfortable with saying
Has
that.
to
Comfortable with
be.
saying that.
Yeah.
And that pains me a little, but it's not like he spent. He's not a career Arsenal guy, but he
Yeah.
some of those goals he scored. That
Early.
scorpion kick,
Scorpion
bro.
kick,
He's
he's
just done it.
different.
He's always done it, and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
Continue.
You're good. We see a lot of players that score a lot of goals, assist a lot of goals, or playmakers. But I feel like he's been one of those guys that is just an elite, pure goal scorer. Like you just get the ball to his feet or to his head or to the back of his heel when he's upside down, like whatever it's going to be, he's going to find a way to get it in the net. And he's just done a really great job surprising me this tournament with what he's done. Dokes, I know you had a comment.
Even that he's playing, it's exciting that
Yeah.
I think
he got this
just the-
call up. Like
Just the fact that they lose, and we're not talking about like they lost like some striker, like they lost, just won the Ballon d'Or, like Karim Benzema, and it literally looks as if France didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
people
he's a-
forget
he's a
that
key
Giroud was
piece
the
of that.
guy in 2018. People
The
forget
guy,
like he
the
was
guy.
the guy. I mean, before Mbappe became the sporting director, he literally told the sporting director, "Go find me a player like Giroud. Like that's who he wants to play with. He wants to play with a number 9 like that." So, I mean, yeah, it's a good shout, Winks. Like he's been playing out of his mind.
And who's yours, man?
Yeah, I'll go with kind of like a biased pick. But Tim Ream. Yeah, boys. Yes.
Timmy.
Tim Ream in the back for the United States has not put a foot wrong in 180 minutes. Like, I mean, he has been so lights out through the first 2 games. And I mean, there was an article shared this morning in the group chat about like just kind of like a spotlight on him and about how he's just had this calm, cool, collected demeanor throughout his entire career. But if any one of us would have been told 2 years ago that Tim Ream was going to be our most important defender at the 2022 World Cup, we would be like, get real.
Damn, that's tough.
The revival has been nuts, and he has been so lights out. I mean, quite honestly, like I almost took Tyler Adams in there because like I love Tyler through and through, but he's gone toe to toe with some of like the world's most expensive midfielders. We all like hype up Jude Bellingham, and Declan Rice so much like in the group chat, and Tyler shut him down for 90 minutes and got them subbed off, which is crazy. But Tim Ream, man, he's just been a different breed back there, and I'm excited to watch him in the next game as well. But I'm really, really impressed with him, and I think he brings the maturity to the team that's needed in such a young group of guys. But he has just been like a fine wine back there. It's been pretty impressive.
You guys heard the conversation that Pep had with him after the Man City Fulham game it was a
Yeah.
couple weeks back. The guy literally came up to him. Pep, the greatest mind in football, was like, if you were 25 years old, you'd be playing for me.
Yeah.
He's like, you are
Like the best
unbelievably
compliment of all
impressive.
time.
Have to be. That's like the maybe the most winningest, most impressive manager ever was like, yo, this 35-year-old dude kind of just worked us.
He's the
Like
truth.
this American guy, he's been here
Yeah.
forever. He's
Yeah.
just like someone gave him a string of games. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I have an honorable mention.
I do too. So I'd love to. Yeah. let's
Yeah,
get those.
the honorable mention that I want to give is the Manchester United Football Club, their selections at the World Cup. And the reason why I say that is I'm going to read off some names to you and think about the impact that they've had on their squads at this World Cup. Harry Maguire, laugh all you want. He was the man of the match for England in game 2. Game
By
1,
Mo-
he had an
by
assist.
Maldini.
Prime Maldini for England.
Dude, nuts. So Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw has been one of the most dominant left backs at the World Cup. He's also had an assist. Rashford goal in game 1. Bruno, you talked all about it. We had Delo, who hasn't seen the field yet, but we'll see him in the next game, most likely. Lissandro Martinez. We have Malacia, who probably is in the same boat as Delo, coming off the bench. We have Cody Gakpo. I'll throw him out. Heavily linked at United, taking it by storm.
We're claiming him. We're claiming
him. We have Casemiro scoring a banger today and having the kind of assist. We had Anthony exciting off the bench. Fred played a role today. Varane was dominant in game 2. And then we had Hannibal as an impact sub for Tunisia. And then we have Mr. Christian Eriksen, who's running the field for Denmark. There hasn't been a miss yet. And of course, you could look at Delo and Malacia as, they haven't really played minutes yet, but they've just been unreal, every single one of them. It's been kind of fun to watch as a United fan and not what I expected. So honorable mention to Manchester United.
Luke Shaw's assist and Rashford's goal came against a 6-goal rout of Iran.
You can
so
only
discrediting
beat the team in front of you.
I'm discrediting. And I do think those guys would be playing a whole lot better if Gareth Southgate wasn't their manager. So I think
Sure.
that's the point you could make about Jude Bellingham. Like, Jude Bellingham didn't look good. He was never set up to look good. Like, he did that off. Like, midfield doesn't click. He looked poor next to, 3 guys who I think are electric as fuck.
Yeah.
Eunice West, dude. Tyler for sure. One of the best players so far in the group.
He's been nuts. Winks, what's your honorable mention? And we got to factor cap it.
Yeah. So this is also biased, similar to your first choice, but I think I'm biased in 2 ways here. But I think that Matt Turner deserves a bit of a round of applause. I think that his only goal given up so far this tournament was a pen to Gareth Bale that wasn't his fault in the first place, but he made a couple huge saves against England to keep it at a draw. He's what was it? He started playing soccer for the first time his sophomore year in college. Was a walk-on at a D1 school, high school. Was a walk-on at a D1 college and is now 28 years old, backup Taryn Ramsdale at Arsenal, and starting keeper at.
Just had to sneak that one in. You had to sneak into Arsenal.
I had to, but he's the backup. But regardless, he's played very, very well these first 2 games. So I think that there's going to be a lot in his head going into tomorrow's game, and he's going to have to show up just like Tim Ream will, just like Tyler Adams will. And I just wanted to shout him out because he's he's the shot stopper that we knew he was. And I think that's built in. I think, the NCAA to a certain degree, like, you can be a shot stopper. You're not going to have the foot skill ever that some of these European goalies will have. But like, we've always had good American goalies, bro. We use our hands in sports. Like, that just kind of comes with the generations. But he looks so panicky on the ball and then finds the right pass. It's
when
like
he dribbled out of the fucking box.
Dude, he dribbles out of the box.
You get nervous.
He looks so uncomfortable on the ball, but then he makes the pass. It's like,
it's great.
I can't tell, the Arsenal training is working.
Is it his natural demeanor
Maybe.
to look panicky, or is he normal and we just think he looks that way?
I think
Hard to
it's when the ball's at his foot, he like knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
Getting to that point to where he does distribute, he's just like chops his feet. I don't know. He looks sweaty. He's done a good job though. I agree completely. Totally worth an honorable mention.
Yeah. Well, like we said, we have match day 3 starting tomorrow, and and all throughout this week, we have a lot to look forward to. So we're going to end with a factor cap from Butch, who isn't here right now, but Dobes, you have the factor cap.
Say, shout out Butch.
Shout out Butch.
Let's see. So Butch's factor cap goes back to Winks. I love this one. It goes, if Olivier Giroud wins the World Cup this season, will he be considered France's best striker in their history?
Wow.
Cap.
You said cap?
Yeah, I got my reasons.
Let's hear it.
I will say
Well-
cap. I will say cap too.
The only reason I say that, well, God, it's hard, I think, to a certain degree, but Thierry Henry won the World Cup already. Like, he did it, and I think he balled in it. I was 2 years old, so I can't really give you stats off the top of my head, but I have just vivid memories of him holding the World Cup trophy. He was that guy for forever for them. He didn't score as many goals. I would argue, too, that there's more competitions now for guys to score goals in than there were.
Especially on this team.
Yeah, 24 years ago, I think it would be a hard thing to call him one of the best. He's clearly one of the best, I think, in the world. But of France, there's a couple of tough guys to cross out on that list.
Yeah. I'll go cap too. And the
Yeah.
only reason why I say it is because I just don't think he passes the eye test like some people do. When you look at Giroud's resume on a piece of paper, it's disgusting. Like, not only like the longevity of his career, but this will be like his second World Cup if they win. He's won the Puskás Award. He's been like top goal scorer so many times, and he's been doing it forever. Like, on paper, you remove the name from the resume and you're like, whoa. But then when you watch him, you're like, he's not as electric as Thierry Henry was. Mbappe is going to smash that record in 2 years. Like, I mean, there's just a lot of things going on with it. I just don't think he passes the eye test, which is like terrible that I rely on that, but that's just what it is for me. And when I think back to like the last, 27 years, 25 years of me watching footy, I just don't think that's it.
I think that's why he's underrated. I think that's why everyone's like, look, man, this guy, you're right. His resume is unbelievable. And then I watched a 2-minute highlight clip on Twitter the other day of him in like at Arsenal in like 2014 against some, low level team. And it was 2 minutes of him missing howler after howler. So I think he had maybe more of the tendency to have that happen, but he's played so many games and he's done it for so long. Like, he's gonna back him. But underrated. Continue.
I'm going cap right now on Monday, November 28th. I'm saying cap. The reason being is because if you tell me that he goes out, he's 1 goal behind Mbappe for most goals at the World Cup. He's got 2 already. If he goes out and scores 3 or 4 more and France wins the World Cup, I think there's an argument there. I think there's an argument there. I'm not going to go ahead and say like, yes, he is, but I just think that there's an argument there. I do think that like kind of like you're talking about, it's like Henry's a Zidane headbutt away from another one.
Yeah.
Like, literally, he's a Zidane headbutt away from another one. So I think it's definitely tough. Just between Giroud and Henry in terms of just French, because Benzema had that time away from the French national team where he didn't agree for whatever reasons. So I think it's definitely between Henry and Giroud. And I think it's clearly Henry at the moment. But I think that if Giroud, for whatever reason, goes and scores 3 or 4 more goals in this World Cup, or scores a big goal in the final or the semifinal, like, I think there's an argument there. I don't think that'll necessarily push him past Thierry just because Henry is Henry. But I definitely think he's going to put himself in that conversation if he somehow does that.
And he'll cement himself as a legend. And like, it'll be like one of those things where it's like kids these days don't know, but he'll be a legend.
Yeah, the streets know.
Yeah, the streets will never forget. Winks, what about you, brother?
Yeah, there's not too much else for me to say. I think that Dobes took the words right out of my mouth. My exact words were going to be, assuming he scores more goals throughout the rest of these games and France goes far and ends up winning, I think that he definitely deserves to be in the conversation. I think that we traditionally hold Henry on such a high pedestal just for what he's done at the national level and the club level. And he's one of my few favorite players of all time. So it would be tough for me to say fact here. So I'll say Cap, but I think he continues on the track that he's on the rest of this tournament, and he definitely deserves to be argued.
Yeah. So caps across the board. Caps times
It's
4.
Cap.
What's
Yeah,
your
it-
cap?
it
What's
sucks. I
your
want to say
cap, Angelo?
fact, but I just think it's cap. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. Thank you to the fellas, and I'll take Nick's thunder here, but like as always, follow us on socials. Plugs. We're going to be a lot more active on our Twitter, heading up to TikTok as well. And then hopefully soon we'll be up on both Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as the YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. But cheers, fellas. Well done.
Cheers, boys.
Let's
Always
go
a
USA,
pleasure.
baby.
Yeah.
Oh, USA. Let's go.
All right.